Good morning. The old man here. January 20th, 2025. Inauguration day of Donald Trump. Something I've been waiting for the last 4 years. Of course, I feel we got cheated out of the last 4 years. But honestly, I think we needed that pause, if you will. For Americans to realize, to wake up and realize the evil of the deep state or the globalists. Ruger, hush. Ruger's got something to say this morning. He feels like he needs to be part of the conversation, but that's all right. At any rate, I've spent the last 72 hours or so doing a deep dive on cryptocurrencies. Again, back on a deeper dive on silver and gold and what's going on there. Obviously, for the last year and a half, I've really done my best to stack silver and gold. I understand it. I understand the basis behind it, if you will. Work the charts. If you study the charts, long-term charts of gold, and silver always follows suit, but if you watch the long-term charts of gold, it's obvious that we're in an upcycle of gold. For the last 7 or 8 years, it's actually been outperforming the S&P. Not by a lot, but it has been outperforming it. And as of late, you're seeing the market start to downturn. I believe we're in a 10-year, we're looking at the beginnings of a 10-year bull market, the next 10 years minimum, a bull market of gold and silver. But way beyond that, thinking more about what Trump's been talking about and looking at the cryptocurrencies and that. And on the one hand, the thing that I've discovered for sure, the only way to make profits in the cryptocurrencies is basically you need to make it another job. I've already got one of those. Much like the housing market, you can buy let's say an apartment complex or whatever and generate revenue. However, if you really look at it close, there's very small profit margin there and just a few things going sideways, like taxes going up significantly, or your insurance going up significantly will eat away at your margins huge, and again, you can only raise rent so much before people can't afford it at all, and then we're in hell yet. So, and again, it's a full-time job, and I don't need one of those. So basically, I think for the majority of us, in fact, we're looking at an investment that is set and forget. At least, long term, you need to look at it, keep an eye on it, see what's going on, because you're going to add to your stack as you go. You kind of have to have a half-ass eye on it, but you could spend an hour a day and figure out where things are at and where it's going, honestly. And I've come to the conclusion that, cryptocurrency, there's money to be made there if you got time for it. And again, if you're retired or if that's your full-time job trading crypto, there's money to be made, no doubt about that. And I've been digesting a lot of what Trump said from even before the election until recently. And I think a lot of it is noise that he's putting out there to set the deep state back on its heels. He doesn't want to tip his hand. He's a damn good poker player. And the fact of the matter is, no matter what he tells us, retail has very little to say or do anyways. It's the big boys that he's playing with their head, actually. In my opinion, one of the biggest tells that he's put out lately is that he's going to deregulate the banks. And what I get out of that is they're forced to do certain things that doesn't always make sense for them. One of the big things is having to have so much bonds backing their loans, which makes sense when bonds were the only tier 1 asset. But for the last few years, bonds have been losing value quickly, and that's just killing the banks. And they don't have the ability as of right now. I think you'll see that change here shortly. Your banks are going to start shedding bonds and start stacking gold. Now, whether that'll ever be official or not, I'm not sure. But I believe that's what they're going to do. I think cryptocurrencies is going to be used to, and not so much Bitcoin. At the moment, I'm not referring to Bitcoin. I'm referring to, let's say, Ripple and all the different things Ripple has to offer. Those are different rails for different purposes, from anywhere from big, let's say in the case of XRP, that could be used for either bank to bank, from country to country transfers, could be used by government to government transfers. And XLM is going to be more like, you can think of it as your Visa, a way to move money fast with very low cost. Right now, when somebody uses a credit card at the gun shop, that costs me 3%. Okay, now there are some processors that I could use that cost the customer 3%. The problem I have with that is, let's say the customer comes in, he buys $1,000 worth of stuff. It's going to cost him $1,060 with sales tax, and he gets a bill for, let's see, what would that roughly be? 3% is going to be right around $33, $35 on top. So he's going to get a bill that I charged him, not that the credit card company charged him the extra $33, but it's going to look like I charged him extra $33. And that's bullshit. I mean, it would really piss me off if somebody did that to me. However, the average person coming into the store swiping a credit card or a debit card doesn't even think twice about what it cost me. And honestly, I have to pass that cost on to everybody else to be able to still make a profit. So I typically just have to, everything I have to add 3% in order to be able to make a profit at the end of the day. So honestly, at the end of the day, it's still costing the consumer 3%. He just doesn't realize it at the end of the day. He doesn't know. But anyways, getting back to it, Ripple XLM is going to be more or less, think of it as your Visa or MasterCard, but it's going to be it's going to be as fast, or maybe even faster, a faster rail, if you will. But the main thing is less friction and less cost. So it'll be so minimal that whether it be the merchant doesn't realize it is so small, or the customer doesn't realize it. Either way, it'll be so inexpensive that it'll almost be a wash. It'll be like maybe 0.5% instead of 3%. It might only be 1/8%, like super small cost. And that's the whole idea behind cryptocurrencies. Again, as an investment, okay, whatever. Maybe long-term it can be an investment. That's up to you to figure out. And I do have a small position in XRP. Got rid of my Bitcoin, all but $100 worth of Bitcoin a while ago, and there's good reason for that. I'd like to talk about that a little bit today as well. You know, if you've been watching crypto at all, I've been watching Michael Saylor and Bitcoin for years. When I first bought Bitcoin, I liked his way of thinking. And under the old system, he is absolutely correct. He's an engineer, and he understands, let's say, an engineered currency, of which Bitcoin is. It's engineered. And under the old system, the only way he could figure out that he wasn't losing consistently, because he basically generated cash. He developed software programs of which generates a lot of cash. It's not like he's got a manufacturing facility. He's got a bunch of engineers and software writers that he has to pay, and that's all well and good. But he makes his profit, and after he pays everybody off, he's got cash, and he's got to move that cash. And what he realized is, all in, that if he kept cash, that he was losing money, significantly amounts of money every year. Or should we say purchasing power every year. The dollar amounts that he had in his bank would be the same, but the purchasing power would be significantly less at the end of the year, so we had to find a better way. And again, investing in the stock market, sure, he could have done that. But at the end of the day, it's another full-time job. Does he have time for that? No. And under the old system, gold would have been better than most anything else, but it still would only keep you at par. There was no increase in value. That was your gold is par, if you will. It keeps your value, but it keeps your value at, let's say, zero. You're not gaining, as a rule, overall, long term, you're not gaining or losing purchasing power. And he wanted something more than just par, and he needed something more than par. Since you're purchasing, at any rate, he's looking for more than par, and I can appreciate that. And what he found was Bitcoin. Well, under the old system, and I truly believe we're going into a new system, and I don't believe that system of monetary is going to be Bitcoin. I think you'll find that we'll get to a new gold standard, if you will, and new gold and silver standard. Gold will and silver will continue to rise in dollar value. When you compare the dollar to the gold, it will rise. But the main thing is, at the end of the day, whatever you've worked for, you convert the excess. Whatever you don't spend every month, you convert that to gold or silver, and your purchasing power will not be eaten away. It'll always be par, at the very least par. So as the dollar goes down, you'll see the gold and silver go up. And one of the things that also goes along with him, and I think the most powerful thing going along with him, wanting to deregulate the banks, and I think he's got the power to do that, is the bullion banks have been controlling the price of gold and silver and copper and everything else in the world. They're controlling it across the world, in fact. Are all those values are being set in the futures market. And honestly, I think every value on the futures market has been kept to a minimum, but mostly on gold and silver, because gold and silver is money. They had to keep that low, and the way to do that was for the bullion banks to put large short positions on and keep the price of gold and silver low. They let it rise a little bit. They got to some degree, or you would quit mining silver and gold entirely, because every ounce of gold or silver you mined would be net negative. And if it's net negative, you're only going to keep a mine open so long before you go broke. So they have to let it come up to at least inflation. And that's why they say gold and silver is an inflation hedge. And well, they're absolutely right. They're letting gold and silver go up just enough to cover costs. And the miners ain't making shit. And you can look at the miners. Yeah, they've gone up in value some, but not a lot. Not near what you would expect in a gold and silver bull run. So when you deregulate those banks, all the banks, I think the federal government, not the federal central bank, but the federal government has been making them put them short positions on to keep the value of the dollar up as long as they could. And I think, well, I know Trump and the Patriots know that. And they're planning on letting it go. And you better have a damn good new plan to replace the fiat dollar. And like I said, they've had this plan for this collapse for years. The next step was going to be CBDCs and complete control. Well, obviously, Trump's threw a monkey wrench in that, not only once, but now twice. And I think we're going to go back to a gold and silver standard, bimetal, trimetal standard, whatever. Could be gold, silver, and copper actually is money again. And with that, I think, like I said, you'll be able to save your whatever excess you make every year or every week. You can save that in copper, silver, or gold in your piggy bank at home or wherever, a vault at home or whatever. You're going to be able to save that. And at the very least, it'll always stay par. You're not losing money. And then maybe a certain percentage of that you could go in a stock market that has reverted back to something that's sensible. You could go out with a certain percentage of it, go out and invest in those ventures and or private, maybe private loans locally. Maybe you even buy a house on a land contract, fix it up, and sell it to somebody else on a land contract, and make 8% a year, something like that. But like I said, I think of everything I've spent the last 72 hours digesting a lot of information. It helped clear things up in my head. I was kind of back and forth on crypto and back to gold and silver and back to crypto, and looked at a bunch of charts, and mainly the long-term gold charts is what's really helped it make sense. That gold and silver is on an uptrend, and if you compare that to the stock market being on a downtrend, in other words, you look at a chart of gold and silver versus the S&P, you'll see that that gold is taking over the S&P, and the S&P is rolling over. And so the obvious, if you can see that, not everybody can see it. A lot of people are still chasing yield, and as long as you're chasing yield, you're going to stay in the market till it's too late. That's just another story. Whatever. Let them figure it out. They'll probably figure it out when it's too late. Unfortunately, there's a lot of pensions tied up in that too, and everybody's going to have to do what they have to do. I have no pensions. I have no IRAs. My backup is gold and silver, and thank God I started a year and a half ago. We've seen a slight lull here, basically in gold and silver. And again, unfortunately, right now, the price of gold and silver has been priced by the futures market, And I think you'll see that separate here shortly. When the stock market crashes, and there's not enough gold and silver to go around, I think you're just going to see the COMEX, however you want to pronounce that. I think they're going to get to the critical level where they don't have gold and silver to pay out. They'll have to pay out in cash, and we all know what cash is. Tech cash is going to be losing value faster than you can shake a stick. So, that's going to go to hell in a handbasket. And I think for once in a lifetime, our lifetimes for sure, the price of gold is going to go to, it's going to be set by a free market, whatever that is. We'll see what it is at the end of the day. And then we're going to ride that out for the next 10 years. I believe at least 10 years. Maybe, honestly, just like, we've been on this fake fiat currency or some part of it since 1913, so well over 100 years. We honestly might see gold and silver rule for the next 100 years. I think that for the way things are, I don't think we're going to go back to a fiat currency anytime soon. I don't think anybody's going to forget about that. In fact, I think Trump and the Patriots will set it up with the help of Congress that we never go back to a fake fiat currency again. That whatever currency we're using will definitely have to be backed by gold, whether that be let's say XRP or whatever, is going to have to be backed by gold, whatever dollar of value, or whatever value that XRP has, or whatever blockchain or whatever currency winds up being, it'll have to be backed by gold. And therefore, the manipulation of governments across the world won't be possible. Of course, U.S. will lead, and other countries will have to follow. Much like California, if you're tyrannical in your government, whether it's California or any other country's government is tyrannical and screws you and still on a fiat system, they're just going to leave. People that got money are going to leave. That's it. And even people that don't have money, look at our forefathers. They left their countries for a better life. And that's what's going to happen. They're not all going to come to the U.S. There's going to be other countries that follow suit, many other countries that are going to follow suit, I believe. And when they do, those people that are under tyrannical governments, fiat currencies across the world, they'll just up and leave. They'll go somewhere else. They'll have to. You just can't keep, working and not having anything for it at the end of the day. Basically, hand to mouth, and hoping there isn't a disaster. And every time there's a disaster, your life is reset. You got to start over again. Even if you did manage in that fake fiat currency, getting ahead, just a little bit, you'll be set back to zero again. Be interesting times for sure. Again, I would highly recommend stacking gold and silver. I think it's the way to go. Having a little something in the stock market, or not so much stock market right now, no. But the cryptocurrencies, probably not a bad idea. But to finish my thought on, and then I'll let you guys go, but to finish my thought on Bitcoin, at the end of the day, it was the best engineered currency of the time, and Michael Saylor was absolutely right in doing what he did and what have you. But I think that time is also coming to an end. When you go back to a gold standard, if you will, you'll find that what you're going to get rid of is a lot of trash in the system. A lot of bureaucracy in the system, and you'll be able to make money basically a shitty analogy, but hand over fist. And you'll be able to save gold and silver and stack it pretty good. In fact, you'll be able to stack it for generations in the coming years, is what I'm seeing. Again, I think this is the next industrial revolution, is what Trump's got in mind. And basically setting up the United States for another 100 years of power, being the leader, basically. But without a fake fiat currency, we don't have to be the world's police anymore, let's say. We don't have to spend as much money on our military. And the thing about it is, too, the fake fiat dollar forces a welfare state where, they're thieving from everybody so bad, but the people on the bottom end of that chart have nothing, and the only way to keep them people from uprising is to give them some sort of a living, even if it ain't much. Give them just enough that they're not rioting in the streets. That's a part of a fake fiat currency. But when you get back to a gold standard, the natural, if you're doing very well, the natural thing, in fact, God will tell you to tithe and to give to the poor, 10% of your earnings to the poor. And if you look at it by today's standards, there's no way in hell you can give up 10% of your earnings. There's not 10% left. After you pay bills, there's not 10%. You'd be lucky to save 2%. You can't give 10%. But when we get back to God's money, gold and silver, maybe even copper, there will be plenty. There will be plenty to tithe. You might be making 20, 25% a year and 30% a year, who knows? And or be able to save 25, 30% of your income a year, maybe even more, maybe 50% of your income a year, because we've cut out so many bureaucrats. And if you could save 50% of your income, or even 30% of your income, tithing 10% would not be a problem. And therefore, through the churches and other community centers, being able to help the poor and the underprivileged. And there will be a lot less of those, because there will be so many jobs that the people that are on the margin of being of value at the moment will come into play. It'll make more sense to, in fact, one way of thinking about it is, right now, if you're on the margin and I've got to pay $20 an hour to get somebody to work today, just for them, and $20 today is just barely making a halfway decent living. You're still going to have to live on credit, and what have you. So how many people today, with their education or their work ethics or their ability, aren't worth employing for $10 a day, even $10 an hour? They're not even worth 10 with things that they are today. So there's a lot of people left out of the job market just because they don't have enough value, let's say, to the system, if you will. So they're left out of the market, and therefore welfare has got to take over. And that's the problem with a fake fiat system. As it goes on, more and more and more people can't fit in. And again, if you let this rise, if this was to rise another 4 years, it'll be $50 an hour, and there'll be so many people under $50 an hour that it doesn't make sense to put them on the payroll, and therefore they fall off, and they have to go on the welfare system. So you have fewer and fewer people working, and more people on the government dime, if you will. And that is the problem. Margaret Thatcher, of days gone by, was famous for saying the problem with socialism is sooner or later you run out of other people's money. And boy, that's where we're at. This system since 1913 is basically socialism, and then lately it's socialism on steroids. That's what happens to every